We grow up believing the world is mapped. The stars have names. The laws of physics are fixed. The soul, if it exists at all, is just a ghost in the system. But what if our entire framework of history, religion, even reality itself was crafted to veil a deeper truth? Because buried in the folds of the 20th century lies a book, one unlike any other, a book that claims to have been dictated by celestial beings, a book so vast, so forbidden, and so cosmically radical it's been dismissed, ignored, or buried in spiritual exile. It is called the Urantia Book, and it might just be the strangest and most profound story never told. They say the universe is expanding. But have you ever wondered if that expansion includes your soul? The Urantia Book begins not with a bang, but with an unveiling, a slow and sacred peeling back of the cosmos. Not through a telescope, but through revelation. We're told it was not authored by humans. It came, instead, from celestial intelligences, entities who watch, guide, and chart the progress of worlds like ours, and they did not come to entertain. They came to explain, to decode the architecture of existence, to realign our myths, our messiahs, and our memory, to map what they call the grand universe, a reality so immense that Earth, or Urantia, is merely one grain in a divine mosaic of light. But why us? Why now? And why this book? There is a reason the Urantia Book is whispered about and not proclaimed. It makes bold claims, terrifying claims. It redraws the life of Jesus. It reframes evolution as planned. And it tells us we are not alone. Yet for all its cosmic ambition, Urantia does not seek followers. It doesn't ask you to believe, only to listen, to contemplate, to remember. So let us step through the mirror together into the pages of a mystery too vast to be fiction, too specific to be dismissed, and too profound to ignore. Let us begin with the origin not of the book, but of the whisper behind it. The origins of Urantia and its celestial claim. It begins, not in fire, but in silence. Not in a monastery, a temple, or a mountain cave, but in a modest apartment on the north side of Chicago. The year was 1924, and a man named Dr. William S. Sadler, a psychiatrist and former Seventh-day Adventist minister, was about to witness something impossible. His patient was anonymous, known only as the sleeping subject. He would enter strange trances during the night and speak. But these were not dreams. These were not hallucinations. These were dictations, precise, otherworldly, delivered in voices that claimed to be celestial administrators from realms beyond human comprehension. Sadler, skeptical and trained in science, tried to debunk it. He interviewed the subject while conscious, normal, ordinary, unremarkable. But when asleep, the words flowed like lightning across a cosmic network. They spoke of realities layered far beyond Earth, a grand universal government of spiritual beings, with hierarchies, laws, and duties. Beings with names like Vorondadek, Orvanton, and Nebadon. They didn't want attention. They wanted clarity. The transmissions continued for years, each time more structured, more ordered. Pages became chapters, chapters became sections. Eventually, they formed a manuscript over 2,000 pages long, divided into 4 parts. The central and superuniverses, a map of divine administration beyond time. The local universe, our galactic region, overseen by a being named Michael. The history of Urantia, Earth, the spiritual evolution of our planet, and the life and teachings of Jesus, a radically new biography of the Son of God. But unlike channelers or gurus, the team behind the Urantia Book stayed hidden. Sadler organized a small group called the Forum Doctors, professors, lawyers who studied the documents in secret. They didn't publish. They didn't preach. They preserved. No money changed hands. No cults emerged. Only a silent, steady dedication to protect what they believed wasn't written by humans at all. And here's the first riddle. If this was fiction, why hide if it was madness? Why structure it with such divine elegance? It's as if the book was never meant to convert, but to awaken, those with ears to hear the music behind the veil. Even the word Urantia, their name for Earth, carries weight. It does not mean domination. It means belonging. A planet catalogued among billions, observed, guided, loved, but not yet awakened. The beings who allegedly authored the book call themselves revelators. And they insist humanity is not fallen, we are rising. We are an evolving consciousness within a vast cosmic nursery. But they also warn, the darkness on Earth is not accidental. We were derailed. And the full explanation is coming. But first, who were these revelators? And why did they choose us? Mystery authors, sleep transmissions, and cosmic custodians. There is a moment in every myth, a hush before the revelation, when the veil quivers, but does not yet fall. In the case of the Urantia Book, that moment lingers because, unlike sacred texts of old, it does not begin with a prophet, a burning bush, or an angel with a trumpet. It begins with anonymity, deliberate, meticulous, enforced anonymity. The man who delivered its words while sleeping remains unnamed to this day. His identity hidden even from those closest to the process, not out of shame, but to prevent personality from distorting message. The Urantia authors were clear. The human individual through whom these communications were transmitted was in no sense the author of the book. Instead, they claim it came from a commission of celestial beings, organized under divine authority, to assist in the spiritual evolution of Earth, or as they call it, Urantia. These were not channeled ramblings, not automatic writing, not seance theatrics. These were composed, edited, and approved on the other side by a multi-tiered group of entities with names and titles as structured as any university faculty. There were divine counselors who laid out the philosophical foundation, universal censors, ensuring no premature knowledge leaked across time, mighty messengers, beings who once were human, now immortalized in higher realms, and even a midwayer commission composed of invisible beings assigned to Earth for millennia, bridging human and angelic awareness. Each section of the book begins with authorship credits. But these credits don't name people. They name orders of celestial function, and each speaks in its own voice, majestic, impersonal, yet hauntingly intimate, like thunder whispering across eternity. But if these were revelations, why now? Why the 20th century? The answer, they say, lies in timing. Humanity had reached a turning point. We'd split the atom, mapped the genome, watched wars burn across continents. It was time, they said, to receive a new dispensation of truth, one that integrated science, philosophy, and spiritual reality, not to destroy religion, but to complete it. And so they came not to one man, but to a circle, a quiet group of thinkers, skeptics, and scientists. People who asked the right questions and waited patiently for decades to receive the answers. They were given rules: do not add, do not interpret, do not publish prematurely. The material was sacred but not to be sold. It was to be protected until the world was ready to listen. And perhaps it still isn't. To this day, the Urantia Book holds no central church, no charismatic leader, no evangelist on a stage. It has remained Like its message, hidden in plain sight, a spiritual Rosetta Stone few have dared to read. But for those who do, the structure unfolds like a cathedral of light. At its heart is a design, a cosmic blueprint of everything we are and everything we are becoming. But to understand that design, we must first trace its geometry across heaven itself to the realms they call Havana, Orvanton, and Paradise, where divinity is not worshipped from afar, but organized, living, radiant. So what does this map of the divine look like? And where exactly do we fit in it? Dimensions, deities, and the divine hierarchy of reality. If there is one truth the Urantia Book insists upon, it is this: the universe is not chaos. It is not an accident, nor a random fluctuation in a sea of void. It is structure profound, mathematical, alive. And Earth, or Urantia, is not forgotten. It is part of a far larger system, one so vast, so symphonic, that the mind must first surrender before it can understand. According to the Urantia Book, reality is layered, ordered, and administrated an interlaced cosmos of material and spiritual dimensions, all radiating outward from a single, timeless epicenter, Paradise. Not heaven, not a metaphor, but a central isle of infinity, the eternal nucleus of all creation. From this Paradise center flows the grand universe 7, superuniverses rotating like sacred wheels around the source, each with billions of inhabited worlds, each governed by celestial hierarchies more intricate than any earthly empire. We live in one of them, Orvanton, the 7th superuniverse. Within it lies Nebadon, our local universe. And within Nebadon Urantia, a single planet among trillions. But hierarchy here does not mean domination. It means stewardship. At the pinnacle is the Universal Father, a being beyond gender, form, or boundary. Not a person, but a presence, source of all love, all intelligence, all being. Co-equal with him are the eternal Son, the spiritual pattern of personality, and the infinite spirit, the divine mind and activator of will. Together, they form the Trinity, from which emerges layer upon layer of divine beings, creators, controllers, messengers, guardians. One such being is Michael of Nebadon, a creator son, who chose to incarnate on Urantia in human form as Jesus of Nazareth. But that story, layered in cosmic significance, awaits us in a later part. For now, we must remain in the architecture, because this is no cold system. It breathes, it evolves. From the central Paradise Isle flow 3 concentric realities. Havana, a perfect, eternal universe, unchanging, flawless, the prototype of all others. The 7 superuniverses, incomplete, evolutionary realms where souls grow and mature. Outer space levels, realms yet to be developed, embryonic in the divine womb. Each level of this system is overseen by beings whose intelligence eclipses our comprehension. Not angels, but orders of creation with distinct purpose. Ancients of days govern entire universes. Vorondadeks serve as divine judges. Lananandeks become planetary administrators. Seraphim guide the souls of individuals. Midwayers, unseen by most, bridge the material and spiritual assigned to planets like Urantia, hidden in plain sight. And above all, a vast and intentional plan of ascension. Yes, according to the Urantia Book, every mortal is born into a cosmic curriculum, a path of spiritual evolution that spans eons, galaxies, and dimensions. From mortal flesh to final fusion with the divine spark within. This is no one-life game. This is soul craftsmanship. We begin in ignorance, We ascend through experience. We are guided by unseen hands, by living energies, by seraphic teachers. And at every level, we are being prepared for paradise, not as reward but as reunion. Still, for all its celestial scale, this model of the universe places a unique focus on us, on Urantia. Why? Why this tiny planet, in this remote corner of the cosmos? The answer is uncomfortable, because something went wrong. And the story of our world, according to the celestial record, is not just one of darkness, but of rebellion. The architecture is not broken, but one of its bridges collapsed. To understand how, we must descend from the stars and return to Earth, to the story of our spiritual history, as told by those who have watched us from the beginning. Our planet's secret history, according to celestial records. They call it Urantia, not Earth, not Terra. Urantia, a designation used across the heavens. To us, it is home, but to the Watchers, the beings who have observed our progress for millennia, Urantia is something far more tragic and far more significant. For within the celestial archives, our planet is recorded not as ordinary, but as disrupted an experimental world that fell into spiritual isolation. The Urantia Book tells a tale we have never truly heard, a tale of planetary administration gone awry, of celestial betrayal, and of a wound that still echoes through the soul of humanity. Long ago, before the rise of our known civilizations, Urantia was part of a vast planetary network, a family of inhabited worlds, each overseen by a being called a planetary prince. Our assigned prince was named Caligastia. For 300,000 years, he governed, invisible to our eyes, yet instrumental in shaping primitive culture, language, and moral evolution. He was one of the Lananandek sons, a noble order trained in universal service. But as with many cosmic tragedies, pride grew. 200,000 years ago, a rebellion unfolded. Caligastia, along with a higher administrator, Lucifer, declared independence from divine authority. They challenged the need for hierarchy. They demanded sovereignty. They rejected the idea that finite beings must evolve through long, gradual ascent toward God. Lucifer's manifesto was seductive freedom without responsibility, light without source, progress without obedience. And Caligastia brought that doctrine to Earth. For over 150,000 years, Urantia descended into confusion. A spiritual quarantine was enacted. Communication between our planet and the celestial realms was cut off. Our soul was isolated. This explains, the book says, why our myths of angels, fallen beings, and divine wars echo across cultures from the Nephilim of Genesis to the Devas and Asuras of India to the Titans who rebelled against the Olympians. These are not fables. They insist. They are fragmented memories of something real. And the consequences were profound. Without celestial guidance, early human civilization was left to fend for itself. Tribalism replaced unity. Violence replaced vision. Spiritual confusion hardened into religious absolutism. Even the arrival of Adam and Eve, highly advanced beings sent to biologically and spiritually uplift humankind, was corrupted. Yes, the Urantia Book speaks of an Adam and Eve not as the first humans, but as a material son and daughter sent to restore planetary order. Their mission failed. They deviated from protocol, and Urantia's spiritual rehabilitation was further delayed. And yet, they stayed. Adam and Eve did not flee. They lived, aged, and died as mortals, leaving behind genetic and ethical imprints that still ripple through our bloodlines. But all was not lost, because one day, a creator son would arrive, a being who had created our very universe, and who now chose Urantia, the most wounded, most rebellious world, as the stage for his final incarnation. He would live among us, as one of us, to sanctify what had been broken. We know him as Jesus, but to the Watchers, he was and is Michael of Nebadon, and his life, as revealed in the Urantia Book, is not the tale told in churches. It is something far greater, something the universe itself paused to witness. The Cosmic Christ and the Hidden Life of Michael of Nebadon. We have all heard the name Jesus, whispered in devotion, painted in cathedrals, invoked in agony and awe. But what if the story we know of the manger, the miracles, the crucifixion is only a shadow of a much deeper light? The Urantia Book invites us to unlearn, to strip away centuries of distortion and doctrine, and to rediscover Jesus not as a mere prophet, nor just a divine avatar, but as the creator son of our universe, Michael of Nebadon, who chose to walk upon Urantia, the most troubled of his worlds, not in glory, but in flesh. This was not an act of pity. It was not divine punishment. It was a cosmic ritual, a bestowal. According to the book, each creator son must, at some point, experience life as one of his own creations. Only then can he fully earn sovereign authority over his universe. And Jesus chose Urantia, the fallen world, the scarred world, our world. He incarnated not in wealth or influence, but in obscurity, not to conquer, but to understand. What the Urantia Book offers is not just a retelling, it is a reframing. A new gospel, over 700 pages long, revealing a Jesus both profoundly human and cosmically transcendent. We learn of his early childhood in Nazareth not simply as a quiet carpenter's son, but as a deeply aware child, feeling the call of divinity within, yet waiting for the appointed time to awaken it fully. We follow him through adolescence, where he works, teaches, mourns, and questions, where he leads his siblings after Joseph's death, where he learns not only scripture, but the complexity of human sorrow. We witness his travels before his public ministry as he journeys through the Mediterranean, visiting Rome, Crete, and the Levant, speaking with mystics, stoics, scholars, and outcasts, absorbing the wisdom of the world, not to borrow it, but to complete it. By the time he steps into his public role, he is not simply a healer, he is the physical embodiment of divine clarity, teaching not through fear, but through illumination. He reveals the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man as eternal realities, not religious slogans. He speaks not of hell, but of free will, and of the soul's eternal journey through the cosmic ascent. Miracles are recontextualized. They are not violations of nature, but expressions of harmony with higher law. Even his death is reframed not as blood sacrifice to appease a wrathful deity, but as the culmination of experience, the final step in becoming fully sovereign over Nebadon. The resurrection, then, is not merely victory over death, but the declaration of eternal dominion. But here is the most staggering claim: when Jesus lived on Urantia, all creation watched. Billions of beings across thousands of galaxies paused to witness their Creator walk among mortals. His life was not just for us, it was for them, a testament that the highest can descend without losing light. And yet, for all its cosmic grandeur, the Jesus of Urantia is heartbreakingly intimate. He laughs, he weeps, he comforts children and reasons with cynics. He doubts not his mission, but his timing. He is real. And in being real, he becomes more than divine. He becomes knowable. The Urantia Book gives us a Christ not as icon, but as blueprint, a mirror of the perfected soul. But if this version of Jesus is true, why have we not heard it? Why has this revelation remained in the shadows? The answer lies in resistance, not from heaven, but from earth. Because truth, especially divine truth, is often feared by the very structures built to guard it. Suppression, denial, and the fear of revelation. Truth, in its rawest form, does not merely inform, it disrupts, it unseats old thrones, it burns through the comfortable architecture of belief. And the Urantia Book, with its sprawling cosmology and transcendent vision of the soul, is nothing if not a divine disruption. From the moment of its quiet publication in 1955, it stood not in opposition to religion, but beyond it. It did not beg for inclusion. It did not argue for authority. It simply was, and for that it was ignored, or worse, attacked. Traditional theologians dismissed it as New Age fiction. Scholars called it a modern apocrypha. Clergy warned it was heretical, even dangerous, because in a world where doctrines rule and gatekeepers guard the door to heaven, a book that claims direct transmission from celestial intelligences is not welcome. Even among spiritual seekers, the book was met with hesitation. Too long, too dense, too radical. Its language was precise, almost clinical, yet its ideas soared beyond mysticism. Not a spiritual escape, but a cosmic integration. It did not flatter the ego with promises of instant enlightenment. It called the soul into responsibility, into service, learning, and long-range ascension. And so it lingered, circulating in the shadows of bookstores, in esoteric circles, in private study groups whose members often refused to speak publicly. There is something paradoxical about the Urantia Book for all its grandeur. It never seeks to dominate. It is not a movement. It has no evangelists, no celebrity teachers, no required rituals, no tithes. And yet, it has changed lives, quietly, radically. Doctors, physicists, poets, and spiritual wanderers have stumbled upon it and found in its pages not just information, but remembrance. Because if what it reveals is true, then humanity is not lost, not fallen, not damned. We are simply unfinished. This is perhaps the most dangerous truth of all. Not that God is wrathful, but that God is patient. Not that we are broken, but that we are becoming. And so, the war over truth continues not with swords, but with silence. The Urantia Book remains, like an unopened letter from the stars, waiting for eyes unclouded by fear. But perhaps that is exactly how it must be. Not shouted, but discovered. Because revelation, when forced, becomes dogma. But revelation, when chosen, becomes transformation. And at the center of it all, the book whispers a final invitation not to follow, but to awaken. So what, then, does it ask of us? What is the path it gently illuminates? To answer that, we must turn not outward, but inward. The inner path. Urantia reveals and why it still matters. There comes a moment when revelation must leave the page and take root in the soul. For all its galaxies and hierarchies, its celestial orders and cosmic maps, the Urantia Book is not about information. It is about transformation. It does not ask for belief. It offers orientation, a compass for the eternal journey of the soul, not in dogma, but in divine intimacy. According to its pages, each of us is more than consciousness in flesh. We are inhabited by a fragment of the infinite himself, a presence it calls the thought adjuster. It is not metaphor. It is not fantasy. It is you, the truest you, the seed of perfection planted within imperfection. This adjuster is not a voice or a command. It is a silent, eternal companion, a guide embedded within your very being, and its only purpose is to lead you home. But home is not a place. It is a state of fusion, a union with the divine essence that shaped you, that watches you, that waits for you. Every decision we make toward truth, beauty, and goodness aligns us closer with this indwelling spark, and every act of fear, cruelty, or apathy distorts that alignment, yet never is it withdrawn. This is what Urantia insists: we are not tested. We are nurtured, not judged, but evolved. Each life we live, each challenge, loss, and joy is a page in the unfolding epic of soul growth. And when this life ends, it is not a curtain, but a corridor. We awaken on the mansion world's realms of transition, education, and refinement. There, we continue learning, serving, becoming, until, across eons, we reach paradise, the center of all things, and stand before the source not as worshippers, but as partners in divine fulfillment. This journey is not exclusive. It is open to all, to every faith, every culture, every background. The Urantia Book does not claim salvation. It speaks of ascension, of earning divine likeness through the slow fire of experience. And it reminds us that the universe is not watching us with suspicion, but with hope. Every seraphim, every celestial order, watches Urantia not as a failure, but as a miracle still in motion. Even in our darkness, we are becoming stars. So why does the Urantia Book still matter? Because in a world drowning in division, it points to unity. Because in a time addicted to speed, it invites depth. Because in a culture obsessed with self, it whispers of soul. Perhaps the final truth it offers is this: you are more than you believe. You are not lost. You are becoming light. The journey does not end at death. It does not begin at birth. It unfolds across eternity. And maybe, just maybe, that small voice inside you, that longing for something more, is not a weakness, but a memory, a distant echo of the place where your story began, and where, in radiant time, it shall return.